Welcome, welcome, welcome. How you doing there, brother? Dr. E, Brother Kelly, Dr. Kelly. How's things down there in North Carolina?
Well, things in North Carolina are the same way when you're able to wake up in the morning and know your name and be able to smile to the world. It's great here. The weather is not too cold, it's not too hot. I know a cold front is on its way, but you know what? We're here and we're glad to be back on Black Art News.
Amen, amen, amen. That's so true. That's so true. This week we are going to cover quite a few stories from September. Just in case you missed the rundown in September, we're going to revisit that through a website called Culture Type. But this first article that we're discussing right now is about the abstract painter Frank Bowling. And the thing for me, I love about art is that one, I get to wear my hat on camera, like Dr. Kelly. I get to wear my beanie as a New Yorker, New Jersey. We love when winter comes because you get to put your hats on, cover your head, get that look, get the hoodie, get ready for winter. Yes. But I also liked looking at Brother Bowling, the picture in this article of him, and he's wearing a hat. And, for me, I just think that artists kind of get to do the thing that we can't do in the business world is be who you are, however you want to show up. He's got a green jacket on, a red shirt. People would probably say, if I tried that, where you going, Martin? Is it Christmas time yet? Hey, you get ready for Kwanzaa, Martin? See,
Well, the greatest thing about being an artist is individuality and creativity and mastering how you feel. Because many times we're put into a pigeonhole, we're put into a box, and we have to kind of do what society says, as we continue to grow. One of the things that you will find that those who are able to create on his level and the outfit is awesome. Red, green, and black. I mean, he's almost looking like a Black Panther with a hat on.
Exactly. And one other thing that I like about our show is that you get to dive into these iconic cities that as a Black person, you may not think of the art scene or the art ecosystem, or as Dr. Kelly likes to say, the canon of local art. And so, Dr. Kelly, we have a guest. Are you going to introduce our guest?
Um, I'm not sure if I'm going to introduce our guest. Our guest popped in, but our guest wants to be in the audience. It's Teresa Chambers.
Okay, got it.
And so, she said she wanted to sit back in the background and check
We
things
just
out.
want to say we're gonna wave. We're gonna
We're
wave.
gonna wave at you. We're gonna wave at you. We know that you're in the background. Thank you so very much for coming. And that's how our show is gonna be, Martin. We have people want to come in, want to check things out, and of course, as we move forward, we're gonna have some artists to come. And that has got to be great.
Right. Now, so the difference is Sister Chambers is an invited guest into the studio lounge. So she's sitting in the studio lounge. Those of you that are watching us on Facebook, Instagram, replay on Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn Live, or Twitter, you also can be part of the show. Just go ahead and give us a comment on that social media platform. We'll post it right here on the screen. So, Dr. Kelly, going to back to the article from Boston, which was about 2 days ago. It's talking about the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston. And it goes all the way back to when I was about 5 years old. In 1976, the MFA acquired Frank Bowling's Sun Crush. And that is I believe right here. Nope, that's the wrong one. Let me see. I don't think there's one down here. Yes,
Go
this is
down
the Sunbrush.
to the bottom of the page. Yes.
And so, um, I when I look at this piece, I definitely see the strokes on the left-hand side of the screen and how he mixed those. I have no idea, you know. And then in the middle, it's kind of interesting. It's the streaks and strokes, and then the spots, and then all the way over to the right, you see what looks like almost some type of a country flag, but yet there's also images over that. What kind of style is this?
Well, this is abstract. One of the things that Frank is doing, he's doing he's layering paper. He's laying. Can't even say it. He's lay.
Layering.
Yeah, he's layering. He's layering paints over paints. The one on the far end, um, that's South America that he has as the image, and it looks to me that he actually put that image on the canvas, and I have to touch it to see if it's actual canvas. It could also be on glass, and it looks like that he did a outline, and then he pulled that up because it looks like the paint up under it is kind of flowing. This is some work. This is the type of work that we don't typically talk about Black people when we talk about the art. And the reason I'm pointing that out is because many times when you go to art museums and you're a Black artist are pretty much pushed to be figurative artists. You look at their work and there's a Black image in their work. But we've learned over the course of the years that there have been a tremendous amount of abstract artists doing great abstract work who you don't know them until you actually take the time out and identify who they are. And Frank Bolden's Sun Crust, done in 1976, and I'm not going to date myself, but in 1976, I was headed to North Carolina Central University on art scholarship. So I didn't know of him, but I think the work is just outstanding. Just the way that he melted the colors on the first panel. It takes more than creativity to do this. I mean, it may look like that it's a piece that somebody kind of just put together, but if you really look at the intricate parts of what he did, you'll notice that he used color to give him a particular feel on each one of these panels. The one on the end, the red, yellow, and green with the Brazil piece is very interesting. But the first panel is truly detailed piece.
Yeah, Dr. Kelly, I usually don't get a chance to talk to an expert like yourself about my feelings when I see pieces. I usually have to internalize that privately. And this piece reminds me, they said in the article, let me get the article back up. But this piece in the article, they describe it as let me just get to the article, as a tropical, how do they say, tropical Technicolor delight. And I guess I think about Technicolor, on the screen after you leave. But to me, it's exactly what he labeled it as, a sun crush. Like when you think of the stained glass, and particularly, I don't know if this is the case. This is my assumption, being raised in New Jersey and on the East Coast, but we had sun porches, and sometime on the sun porch, you'd have this piece of glass that had strips in it, and they were different color.
Mm-hmm.
And that was in the window of a sun porch, and the sun would shine through, and you have these 3 or 4 colors that hit the whole porch, and at a certain time of the day. And that's what this piece reminds me a lot of, the intentionality of creating a frame and the sun hitting those those different squares at a certain thing. Is it when describing art, does it seem to be a thing where the artist labels the piece and the press reimagines the label into like, I
Well,
was like,
well,
Technicolor is really bland. Technicolor was really, but we know it's Technicolor because these kids, they don't have no idea what Technicolor means. But we know what Technicolor is. When the TV was going off and there was nothing else that was going to play at 1 o'clock in the morning, there's a screen, color strips that came on,
mhm.
and that was a Technicolor. Uh, I don't
well,
really see Technicolor.
well,
Like, mhm.
well, well, I would say that, the biggest challenge of African American artists and of some other artists is that many times the narrative is painted by those who get an opportunity to write. And while he may say it's the Technicolor, I'm looking at some warm hues. I'm looking at some burnt umbers. I'm looking at some light grays. I'm looking at um, a green that is not a forest green, but a green right below forest green. The colors that he utilized in the first panel, to me, the orange and the red doesn't represent Technicolor. Now the one in the middle, we could squeeze that in if we were just going to utilize those four colors, because he had some blues and some greens and deep down in the back. And I did say they look to me to be on glass, but I believe they may be on canvas. And pretty much most of the time when artists are doing work, they label it. But like I said before, the one that's able to paint the narrative or write the narrative sometimes labels it what they think it is. It would be very interesting to talk to Frank about, you know, how he did this process, because this is, many times people don't understand an abstract artist goes through many layers to get to their solution, to their drawing.
And that's why I love being able to have these conversations with you, because I think that it's a unique it's a unique perspective that you bring, but also at the same time, like I said, usually I'm interpreting art alone. Having worked in Soho, Sixth Avenue, Avenue of the Americas, for a number of years, I would at lunchtime go to different galleries that were near there, and just walk the gallery. One, to irritate white folks, but two, uh, because my business card said, the fund for the city of New York. And so when I would leave my card, the gallery owners, you interested in the piece? No, but if you get something good, here's my card. And they, oh, excuse me, sir, excuse me. Yeah. But saying that to say that it's excellent to have have a dialogue with you, and I appreciate the ability to. I'm gonna go to
Well,
our.
well,
Mhm.
one of the things about Frank's work is this. He was a guy, and doing some research on him, was a guy who if you can imagine taking a can of paint and pouring the paint and allowing the paint to kind of drip down on the canvas. That is one of the methods that he used to get the colors that he got. His vivid abstracts um, kind of were drenched down the length of the canvas, and these pieces are actually on canvas. I thought it was on um, some type of glass, but it's actually they're on canvas. And when you think about them being on canvas and actually looking at them, these three pieces are incredible. But Frank was a gentleman that Howard Zerwitt gave him an exhibition at the Venice Bicentennial in 2003. He also had another show at the Tate London, 2019. But the thing that I think that's very very interesting about him was that he is another gentleman that is that's absent in the art canon of black art. He's missing in action. You can start talking about the Clifford Steeles, the Morris Lewis, Frank Bacon, and all of those other guys who had some figurative elements, but in reality, this guy, um, nobody really knew who he was because again, he was from London, and great black artists. And these are the kinds of things. And one of the reasons this show I think is impactful is so that we can have those conversations about artists that we don't normally see, and then we can begin to appreciate really what they was working to do as an artist.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's important for us to do this show, and also important for you to speak on what's not included in today's canon and why someone like Frank Boland should have been included. And this article does bring out the suspicion of racism as to why it's taken him so long. Oh, I know you mentioned one thing. Can you explain? I don't think people fully, who aren't part of the art world, fully get what the big deal is about getting a solo exhibition and where. Like this is being exhibited at the Museum of Fine Arts. Why is that important for him to not be part of 14 other Black artists? Why is it important for artists to get a solo exhibition, and the exhibit being where is important?
Well, it's kind of like a record that's being played. Okay, we can play it on the AM station, we can play it on the FM station, we can play it in high rotation, or we can just discover the record and play it in our homes, and nobody really hears it but us. So the museums and the places where artists get their shows changes not only the trajectory of the artist's work, but changes the value. Many times people don't realize, you can be a great artist, you can paint all your life, but the right people need to see it. Now, when he got a show at the Tate London, he had a major retrospective show at the Tate London that changed the value of his work. And in that same year, and many people that don't know, there are a couple of galleries that, if you're an artist, you want to be in. The House of Wit is an art gallery that has different galleries all over the world. The House of Wit and the Gagosian Gallery are probably the two top galleries in the world. You get in the House of Wit, you'll find African American artists like Mark Bradford, who's selling his work for $12 million a piece, and it just changes the level of what people start to think about your work, whether or not it's. And I'm not saying this as a dig at him or any other artist, but whether or not it is your flavor or your style, or whether or not you like it. Personally, the art world says to you that this is a piece that needs to be noted. This is a piece that's in the top galleries in the world, and the price on this piece becomes a rarity. And that's why many artists go with galleries, even though they may not agree with what the galleries are able to give them, because many of the galleries want 50% of the commission on $1 million piece of work or a $300,000 piece of work. And many artists sit around and they say, well, what did you actually do as a gallerist? And the gallerist would say, well, we promote your work. We write books for your work. We put your work out on the platform, and we help you become a more profitable artist. And so those are the kinds of things that that Frank really probably enjoyed, you know. And his work has some, as you saw the first piece that you showed, it has some figurative element in it also, you know, landscape paintings with some figurative elements in it also.
No doubt, no doubt. All significant points, and that again, points to. I keep saying the same thing over and over again, but I love being able to have this conversation with you because, as I said, a lot of times, at least for me, I'm not able to speak to an art expert. Um, I'm experiencing art alone, and I don't know the artist's history or the framework that racism plays in displaying Black art. So I think it's really important and significant for Black Art News to be here and to do this type of conversations that we are able to do. Going to head over to our next series of headlines, and that is from a website called Culture Type. Basically, rundown, in case you missed it, type of Black art news. The first piece is talking about Valerie Maynard and who she is and her receiving what she was able to do, receive an honorary degree at Maryland Institute College of Arts. And she gave the 2021 commencement speech. And I mean, I did not know about her at all. Never heard of her. To find out this sister was a sculptor and printmaker. I wonder if she's wearing her print. I mean, this print right here that she's wearing, she may not be, but that is a dope print. I mean, this is so beautiful and it has so much power in this piece. But even if she's not, I know she has the eye. You can tell she has the eye. You can just see it. Any comments on our sister, Valerie Maynard?
Well, one of the things that always gets me is when an artist or I say a light is dimmed. And Valerie Maynard from 1937 to 2022 was a trailblazer. She was one of a few artists who did sculpture and print. And looking at what she's wearing, I mean, she incredible outfit. Just a great looking lady. One of the things that we as artists always think about when an artist leaves is, how great an opportunity that we had to see the kind of work or to witness what an artist had an opportunity to do. I haven't studied her much, so I don't know a lot about her, but I am going to look her up and just kind of dive into the kind of great things that she probably left us with.
Right. I think that is something that significant, the ability to have these conversations again and have them in the space of, like you said, when someone is gone, but also just being able to have this conversation with you, bro, is like, I'm not feeling disconnected from the art world as much as I probably have in the past because of being able to have an intentional conversation around art, Black folks, and the framework around them. One of the things we had just talked about, somebody just joined us, I added 2 more platforms that we're on. So we're on Facebook on 3 different Facebook pages, the Black News, my personal page, and also something called Urban Literary Review. And that's from my author days of representing authors online. And I just added us into the group Black Artists, which is 2,000 Black artists in that group. So if somebody just coming on.
Yeah, can
Mhm.
I say a little bit more about Valerie Maynard's work?
Sure.
I think it would be um, sad if I didn't say a couple of other things about her work. I want the audience, I want to make a request to the audience to really, when we bring an artist up and that artist lights dimmed, let's go out and buy and purchase some of that artist's prints. She did a piece a while back called Strange Fruits. And one of the things that you notice about her work is her line work. you know, and even though she also did sculpture, and the sculpture pieces are just incredible because she did wood sculpture, man. She did wood sculpture murals. And what I mean by that is, you know, just imagine taking crayon and just taking crayon and pressing it against the wall, and then taking a knife and then cutting images out of that crayon onto a wall. When you go in and look at some of Valerie's work, you will notice that she did a lot of black and white printing. In some worlds they would call them lithographs, but the piece that she did called Strange Fruit is really an intricate piece that it starts out with a face, and then because she does printing, she did several prints of that face going backwards into the composition, and it's just amazing, the black and white prints that she did. And I know you stated earlier that maybe the what she was wearing, it may be one of her designs. If you look at, not, I shouldn't say if you look at, but when you look at some of her works, you notice that the design that she's actually wearing is is similar to the kinds of work that she does. And she did she did a piece that I want the audience to go and really look at, and it looks like a man standing, um, um, holding a actual slave ship with the slaves packed in on the ship. This piece here is truly incredible, man. Like I said, a lot of artists who are doing great works, we don't get a chance to see exactly what they're doing, but I just wish that we had more time, more time to dive into artists, as they are doing great works. Because when you start talking about the canon of work, man, when you look at her sculpture pieces, you'll notice that her sculpture pieces have that real rich African flavor. Um, it's really incredible.
Yeah, no, it's like you said, I was not aware of her, one, and two, unfortunately, to know that she passed this year. But she also, left a legacy for us to, as you said, support and to really think about that in terms of what that means to her family, the support, but also what that means in general to the art world, to show our support for the elders and the legacy trailblazers who've been blazing a trail for decades.
Well, they
And
they just had an art auction on her work, and one of the things that many people probably don't know about her is that, you know she also did figurative work. If when you do sculpture, um, and I talk about art from different layers. When you do sculpture work, you really get deep, kind of a deep dive into the human face, the figure of the human face. You get a chance to kind of touch the essence of what a face is. And one of the things about her, as I took a gander while we were online to kind of look at some of her work, because I really, I get kind of caught up when it's an artist. But when you look at her figurative work, it is just amazing too. It's truly amazing. And as I said, we as African Americans or Black Americans, or as collectors, need to always go out and not only study the art, but study the person and and see what really made her tick. Because when you look at the breadth of work that she's done, it's just an incredible, as I continue to say, incredible survey of work that she's done.
Yep, absolutely. I wholeheartedly agree with you, bro. I'm going to go on to our next headline from the same list of things that happened in September that we may need want to know about. Something that I had not thought about in a long time, a terminology that is beautiful language. That's the other thing about art. There's sometimes beautiful language. Afro esotericism. like Afro, not Afrofuturism, not Afro, whatever, but Afro esotericism. I was like, yo, that right there, I just need a T-shirt that says I'm Afro esoteric. What are you?
Man,
go ahead, brother.
You guys, now what you really are doing, you testing my knowledge. Um, I can't even begin to talk on that statement. Afro esotericism. Gotta do a little bit of homework on that, because when you begin to start studying art, you'll find that many times when you're looking at the past and you're looking at the future, people have pressed their what I would say is their feelings for how they feel as a term into their art. I know that I'm an expressionist artist, abstract expressionist artist, and I started out as a expressionist artist doing figurative pieces of art. And I got to look that up, man, and see exactly what it is, so that when you call me an expert, at least I would know.
Well, I think the thing about art is that's the whole thing. Like art, if someone comes out, we said Afro patternism, and this guy or person came up with these patterns that they felt defined African culture and Black culture or Afro-Caribbean culture, or the diaspora, the pattern of movement. If he did a drone and he was looking over Harlem, and he looked over Lagos, and he looked over the capital of Jamaica, and he saw patterns, and then they said, I'm going to paint that, and this is Afro patternism. It's not a thing that you have to know, but it is the knowledge that the framework of art, and this is where it gets really, to me, really technical, on where mine's on our assumption, yours are actually learning, and the framework for art, to me, correct me if I'm wrong, says I don't have to be defined by the actual frame. So the framework is there is no frame. And if I interpret people's literal movements as art, and I reinterpret that and paint that, and then someone, what is this? This is so, the colors of swirls. Well, that's actually a picture. See, this is a picture from Lagos, and this is a picture from Harlem. And it could be carnival. The carnival that happens in Canada, Toronto, Ontario, the carnival that happens in Trinidad, and the carnival that happens in Brooklyn. And that's it. That's Afro-Panafricanism. Then that's what the artist's right is. The artist's right is to just create and just exist in their creation or their interpretation of creation. And I think that's what, when I looked at this word and I said, woo, but I will say the but part is I do belong to Afro-punkism, and I'm in that Afro-punk space. So it spoke to my heart. So I've heard it before, not with art. That's the thing too, or not with painting. I mean, other art, and this particular artist, he's a multidisciplinary artist. So I've heard of Afro esotericism in the way in which people interpret some music, the way they interpret some literary works. But hey, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, the framework of art is that you can just exist and you define what is art. And if your audience accepts you.
I was gonna break in because I was thinking about this term, and so many artists have what they call their own space. And a while, I can't pronounce his last name. I think it's Ezekiel.
Yeah, I have no idea either.
Yeah, his image is the origin of Afro esotericism. And it's a composition of different rhythms of colors. And as we move further into having the dialogue about art, one of the things that you will see is that all artists are looking for their space. What is, I guess you could say, it's kind of like creating music. And Michael Jackson created his space. James Brown created his space. um Aretha Franklin created her space. And it's the same with artists who are doing incredible work. Awal Ezekiel, born in 1988, he's from Ethiopia. And you got to understand, one of the things, born in Africa, one of the things that he utilized was masks and sculptures to be a part of his art. And I could imagine, being in Ethiopia and having a different kind of flavor, a different kind of feeling for what art really is. Because now, if you ask me what an Ethiopian artist is, the first thing that I'm going to think is about mask. I'm going to think about lines on people's faces. I'm going to think about an earthy type of art. But in reality, when you go to places like Cairo, which has cities, not cities that are just as modern as some of the cities in the States, you have to try to figure what is the thought process of artists in different countries. And his artwork is very interesting also.
Yep. I totally agree. Was going to go ahead to our next headline, and this is I think it was a great one. I appreciate your your grace allowing me to dive into the language of art. So New Orleans, Prospect, New Orleans names Ebony G. Patterson, who's above, who we see in this picture. I'm trying to get to their website. There we got it. Cool. Names her, Ebony G. Patterson, as a Susan Brennan co-artistic director of Prospect 6, which opens fall 2024. She splits her time between Chicago and Kingston, Jamaica, and she's the first artist appointed to this role. And she will collaborate with the senior curator at the Museum of Contemporary Art, Denver. When you talk about some of these places, like we just had the Museum of Fine Art in Boston. Now we're over here in Denver. When it comes to an artist and a person really being able to show off their ability to create, can you explain for a minute or less than, thanks for shouting us out, do you think that there'll be a time when, I don't know, somebody in Louisville, Kentucky will create a gallery, and we'll be on the same level as these other cities when we talk about Museum of Fine Art, the Museum of Louisville, Kentucky art. And is it location based? Is it the pool of curators or the pool of art patrons that make these, when I hear Colorado, Denver, it's like, ooh, the Museum of Fine Art, MoMA in New York. But you don't hear a small town, this off the beaten path place elevated. And is it because they necessarily you don't think of that location, or they don't have the art patrons, or if they did have, like, people are leaving LA and going to Dallas, right? A lot of people, this is a huge migration of people leaving Los Angeles and going to Dallas or going to Texas. Will we have some Odessa? Will somebody create the museum? If a billionaire creates the museum of Odessa, Texas, will that then, because a billionaire put the money out there, will that then put Odessa in the same, language or canon of the other great spaces?
Well, before we get there, got to just take a moment, and we want you to go out and look at Ebony's work. The type of work that she does, and I'm not going to break it out into layman terms, because a lot of times when you start out with these terms, you kind of lose the importance of what the artist does. But she does something called tapestry, and what tapestry in layman's term is, she actually sews her work onto the platform that she uses. And when you take a moment and really look at her work, again, it's incredible. And one of the things that I say to a lot of folk when I say somebody's work is incredible, I'm looking at it from, I guess, a different lens. I'm looking at it as, could I do the work? Because I'm an artist, and that's what we do. We look at your work and we say, can I do it? Can you do it? Could I have done it better, or could I have done something similar? And when you see work that is so intricate and that's so, detailed, she confronts race in her work. And if you actually look at her work, and I did try to do some tapestry work when I was in college, but nothing, absolutely nothing on this level. When you really look at her work, you see how intricate that she utilizes the materials that she sews as she hangs that work in different museums. Now, back to the question that you asked, will there be a museum like the Tate Modern? Will there be a museum like the Getty? Will there be museums in the Black community? Well, the biggest challenge of many museums is money. When you start talking about not only money, another challenge is, as we talked about the canon, another challenge is being able to get works from artists and to authenticate that work is done by those particular artists that are going to go into these large halls. So that's one of the biggest challenges that many artists have. As I've said so many times, it is amazing to me that we have a guy by the name of Ernie Barnes, and there is no Ernie Barnes Museum. It is amazes me that Romare Bearden doesn't have a museum. It's amazing to me that Charles White doesn't have a museum. And when you begin to say a person like a Charles, a person like Ernie, a person like a Romare don't have a museum, the question is not, do they have a museum? The question is, how much work do they have to put in some of these massive museums? We as a group, I believe, should do more investigation, or take some more time out and look at that particular piece of art history. We talked on last week about how some of the artists are missing in action. that's because who prepares the narrative. And so that has got to be one of the biggest things that Black people don't look at. A lot of times we watch other cultures collect our work and put them in museums, but when do we begin to create the great massive museums like the museum in New York? You go to that museum and it takes hours to walk around. And when you go to the Smithsonian in DC, from the bottom to the top, it takes hours. But the question becomes, how much work is in these museums? And you have to fund them. That is the biggest challenge.
Yep, I could not agree with you more. 100 to 150% agree. I know we're winding down. I did want to get to this one, definitely cover this one story. And Ebony's work and just phenomenal. And also her appointment. Since I'm in Louisiana, I'll be watching out to see what type of shows come from that appointment. But one of the pieces, let me get this situate ourselves correctly. Okay, cool. There we go. One of the pieces I wanted to be able to talk about that I thought, was really important for September, but in general, we also talked about this last week, and you mentioned that, awards that are given, prizes that are given to artists are, most people don't realize that you can sustain yourselves by winning these awards. And so interdisciplinary artist Ralph, I don't know if you say Lemon or Lemon, received the 2022 Lemon. Okay. Lemon received the 2022 Bucks Bomb Award. He was selected for a $100,000 prize from among 63 artists and collectives that participated in the Whitney Biennial, I think.
Yeah, Biennial.
2022. Quiet as it is kept. And that's from Art Forum. Now, the reason why I think that's important for us to really celebrate and to know is look at his work. I mean, this has me thinking about Sesame Street, at the same time Picasso, at the same time. I mean, it's just phenomenal. And I probably would not have guessed that someone said he won a $100,000 prize for this work here. Not because I'm judging his work as less than 100,000, but oh snap, So we hold these artists up, music artists. We hold these rappers up. But we don't hold up our Black artists. And
well, one of the things with this piece, and I just hope that this show really gives people an opportunity to really see the work. If you look at this particular piece, and I want people to look real deeply into the artwork. It is not what's up front that matters. It is how it's intertwined to make a piece of work. And I'm pretty sure that once you dig in a little bit deeper on Lamone's work, you're probably gonna see why he won the money for 63 other artists, because this may be the piece that they're showing us, but the pieces that probably helped him to win the award were probably pieces that you would probably look at and think that a European artist would have made. This guy here, his work again is phenomenal. When you see layers of paint on canvas, one of the things many people don't understand, what's underneath that underneath that paint. Is it pure one color or is it two colors? As I see that red butterfly flying across, to me it looks like it's a depiction of the birds and the bees, the butterflies flying to flowers. That's what it looks like to me. The different multicolors of a pasture of flowers, and that's what it looks like to me. And that may not be what it is, But these are the kinds of things that make people call you an artist. When you look at something and you see something one way, and many other people get an opportunity to see it different ways. That's what art is all about.
I agree with you 100%.
There's a turtle. You see the turtle?
Yep. And so, I mean, just this conversation around, here's this person who received $100,000 award for their hard work. And I love what you said about what's underneath the work, because a lot of times we don't consider that as part of the piece, is what is the base of foundation of the work, and how does that artist interpret that foundation as foundational? Is it I keep seeing this tealish color popping up throughout the piece, and this light blue. Maybe it's not teal, maybe it's light blue. But is that the canvas? Was that the base color? It's really interesting when you bring that out.
Well, one thing about art, and I know we're wrapping up, but one thing about art is that it's the interpretation of how that artist feels. And no matter who looks at that work, one of the things that you'll find out, we have some incredible people like Jacob Lawrence and Elizabeth Catlett, Alma Thomas, Bob Thompson, I said Romero Bearden and Charles White and Hal Woodruff, and the list goes on and on. I think what this show does, it kind of exposes people to things that they're just not looking at. Because many times when you think art, you do think about, in the Black community, you do think about the Basquiats. You do think about, for me, you do think about
Ernie Barnes.
Ernie, but I can't get past Ernie and Charles White. But what happens is, in the canon of art, there are a tremendous amount of artists who has done great work that you don't know. I would implore or submit to everybody, when you do come to the show and we start talking about an artist or something that's going on, go to your phone or go to your computer and actually look up their work. When you look at the works of Fred Eversby, that's his name, Rashad Johnson and Theater Gates and Kenny Wiley, these are people that people know. But do you know who Jack Whitten was, and James Little and Deborah Roberts and Derek Adams? Do you know who those artists are? Those are Black artists also. And so as we continue to do this show, I like to ask everybody to, after the show, to look up people like Bob Thompson and Beard and Charles Austin and see what they were doing. It's easy for us to talk about Henry O. Tanner, the banjo playing piece that he did with the child. But the thing that most people don't think about when you think about art is, what themes did these artists draw? There was a big thing to do with Charles White and Ernie Barnes, because these guys was having conversations on who's stealing or who's doing their themes in their work. And it took me years before I really understood, what a theme was in people's artwork. And that's just something that people will not talk about when you talk about artists. What is the theme of the picture? How did the artist come up with that theme? And what does that theme mean? That's why when I looked at that piece that we just saw earlier, and I started saying, do you see the turtle? Do you see the bumblebee? Do you see the flowers? Do you see the butterflies? There's a theme that's going through that piece of artwork that he created.
Exactly. Excuse me as I stop myself from sneezing. Appreciate you, bro. Appreciate all the hard work you do every week and keeping us informed about Black art. And let everybody know how they can follow you and get in touch with your gallery.
Well, they can get in touch with my museum by going to the erickellymuseum.org. My Twitter is Eric Kelly Museum, and I also have another Twitter, Eric Kelly I believe it's Eric Kelly 45. One of the things that I am finding that we as artists must begin to deal with the social media revolution and put our work out there so that many other people can see our work. You always can just type my name in Eric Kelly III .com and or just type in my name, Eric Kelly artist, and my work will pop up all over as Eric Kelly III. That's where my stuff resides. I want to say to everybody, to the audience, thank you so very much for coming behind me. Of course, I'm going to have a piece of my artwork, and the hardest thing about this show is for me deciding on which piece I'm going to show. This is a piece I did in college when I was doing a lot of figurative work, and it's a piece where a slave is crossing the Mississippi on the horse, holding a baby up in his head. Oh yes, hey, that's Jermaine Moody. Hey man, that's our guy. Thank you so very much for tuning in. And Martin, one of the other things that we have to say before we get out here is, if you're an artist, if you have work and you want to share your work on our show, please email me or email Martin. We'll put that in the bottom. You can email us, or you can hit us up on Twitter. You can email me at erickelly45 at Gmail. We want you on the show. I think one of the things that we want artists to understand is that this show is for artists and for collectors. And it's definitely for you, the artist that's out there saying, you know what? I like to talk about my work. We want you to talk about your work because we understand that the narrative that's painted around your work when you leave the planet is somebody else's narrative. And so it's very important to us for artists to come and share their work and show their work, because we are no ego zone here. It doesn't matter to me or to Martin what your work looks like. If it's your work, it's your interpretation of your feeling or how you feel about what you do. Come on board. Let's talk about it. Let's look at it. We want to hear how you feel as an artist, because one of the things that we do find a lot of times is that many artists don't express themselves with their voice. They express themselves with their paintbrushes. And what we're doing is we're saying there is somebody in there. Show up and show out. And that's what I wanted to say before we get out of here. And of course, Martin, how can people reach you?
My information is right there in my title. So you can say at LMJ Pratt everywhere. All right, Dr. Kelly. Go ahead, Brother Kelly.
And again, we want to thank everybody for tuning in. We went a little long today. We will be back next Wednesday at 3:00. And as we continue to say, what's behind the brush? What's behind the brush? What is behind the brush? You got Eric Kelly III from the south side of Durham, North Carolina, saying, without love, there's no happiness. And without happiness, there is no peace of mind. Thank you until the next time. Bye-bye.